Fatima, apparition of Our Lady of Fatima, Portugal. The epistle for this fourth Sunday, taken down the first epistle of St. James, chapter 1. Dearly beloved, every best gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no change nor shadow of alteration. For of his own will hath he begotten us by the word of truth, that we might be some beginning of his creatures. You know, my dearest brethren, and let every man be swift to hear, but slow to speak, and slow to wrath. For the wrath of man worketh not the justice of God. Wherefore, casting away all uncleanness, and abundance of naughtiness, with meekness receive the engrafted word, which is able to save your souls. In the Gospel, according to St. John, chapter 16. At that time Jesus said to his disciples, I go to him that sent me. And some of you asketh me, Whither goest thou? But because I have spoken these things to you, sorrow hath filled your heart. But I tell you the truth, it is expedient for you that I go. For if I go not, the Paraclete will not come to you. But if I go, I will send him to you. And when he is come, he will convict the world of sin, and of justice, and of judgment. Of sin, because they have believed not in me. And of justice, because I go to the Father, and you shall see me no longer. And of judgment, because the prince of this world is already judged. I have yet many things to say unto you, but you cannot bear them now. But when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will teach you all the truth. For he shall not speak of himself. What things soever he shall hear, he shall speak. And the things that are to come, he shall show you. He shall glorify me, because he shall receive of mine, and shall show it to you. Thus are the words of today's Holy Gospel. Father, and Son, and Holy Ghost, amen. So on this fourth Sunday after Easter, and 100 years after Fatima, began with Prophecies of Our Lady 100 years ago, which some priests even recently, told me very recently that he told me that the Fatima is just a private apparition. It's just a private apparition. It's not essential, and that that so. And even had the same words of Pope Francis: "Don't talk to me about Fatima." Just a private apparition. And there's still people that claim that even in our times, 100 years after the apparition of Our Lady. Remember that we only call it a private apparition in order to distinguish it from public revelation. Because public revelation, that's the teaching that's found in the Gospel and in the sacred tradition. And any teaching after that, we call private revelation, in order to distinguish it from the public revelation. But private revelation does not mean that God speaks to the saints, and God speaks to the children of Fatima for private purposes. He speaks for the salvation of souls. He speaks for the world, for the whole salvation of souls, and for the necessity of the church. He told Our Lady, Our Lady told the children of Fatima 100 years ago that the Pope was consecrated Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Russia was spread its errors throughout the entire world. He gave 3 great secrets. Special secrets for our times. The first one, that souls are going into hell like snowflakes. There'll be many souls in hell. Show the children to say this, the souls in hell. And the second one, that Russia is going to spread its errors throughout the world. Its grave errors. Atheistic communism, or modernism, which is actually the same heresy. Atheistic modernism, the synthesis of all the heresies. Atheistic communism will spread its errors throughout the entire world. And then the third secret has to do with the church, which is the loss of souls, and the atheistic communism is going to be found in the church. And the cause of the loss of souls and the spread of communism will be found in the church. And there's going to be a betrayal of Christ in the church. As Our Lady said back in La Salette, about 150 years ago, Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. And so this is what's happened in the last years. And that there's going to be a great decline, a great falling away, a big decline. And this decline is going to go down, down, down. And then there will be this great falling away until there is the consecration of Russia and the great victory. And so that this battle has been going on for 100 years now. And we have, a few days ago, just before this 100th consecration, we fought the 100th year anniversary, we have the consecration of a new bishop in our resistance. Bishop Williamson consecrated, or the false resistance, consecrated Bishop Gerardo Zendejas a few days ago, on May the 11th. And the day afterward, May the 12th, they did a kind of a consecration of Russia, the Immaculate Heart of Mary, insofar as they could, not to replace the Pope's consecration, but to show they were going to consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And what do we see in recent years? The prophecy of Fatima is being fulfilled in Catholic tradition. The third secret, that the devil is going to infiltrate the church. The devil is going to infiltrate the hierarchy. And the devil is going to use the priests and the bishops and the Pope to bring souls to hell and to spread Russia's errors throughout the world. That's the essence of it. Now, of course, the Pope was supposed to reveal this before 1960 at the absolute latest. He did not. He did not, because, of course, the third secret shows the criminals to be the Pope and the bishops and the priests. And it was the Pope and bishops who had to decide to release the secret that said they were criminals. And so they decided not to release it. Now what happened? The evil that entered Rome in the latter part of the 20th century in a very big way now enters into the Catholic tradition. It enters into the Society of St. Pius X. The errors and the heresies of Vatican II enter into the Society of St. Pius X and into the mainstream of the Catholic tradition throughout the world. And now we find in recent years it enters into the resistance. And one example of it is just a few days ago. A few days ago, when Bishop Williamson, along with Bishop Four and Bishop Thomas Aquinas, the three bishops consecrated together Bishop Gerardo Zendejas, and afterwards he gave a short talk, a little 7-minute talk and a speech after the Mass. And it says in that little talk that it began by saying, well, you know that I said to Bishop Zendejas, the first thing I told Bishop Zendejas, the first thing I said after the consecration ceremony was ended, was, you know, St. John Chrysostom says that the road to hell is paved with the skulls of the bishops. And they all laughed. The road to hell is paved with the skulls of the bishops. He's speaking to Bishop Zendejas, speaking on his own behalf, and the other bishops, and they all laughed. Now, when St. John Chrysostom said those words 1,600 years ago, he was not laughing. When St. John Chrysostom said the road to hell is paved by the bishops, what did he mean? Souls are going to hell on a road that's spoken by our Lord Jesus Christ in the gospel. He said, broad is the road, smooth is the path that leads to destruction, and many there are who find it, many there are who go thereby. Who constructed that road? St. John Chrysostom says the principal pavers and constructors of that road are the Catholic bishops. And we see in the 20th century and the spread of the errors of communism, the spread of the revolution, the sexual revolution of the 1960s, the wickedness spread throughout the entire world. This is because of the bishops. The bishops did not do their duty. The bishops did not stand up. And the bishops did not preach the gospel. There are two sides. One side is in the gospel today, the negative side, and the other is in the end of the gospel of St. Matthew. But then Bishop Williamson gives another answer. The answer for the priests of this false resistance, of a controlled resistance against the enemies of God. When you have a controlled resistance against the enemies of God, it means a non-resistance against the enemies of God. When you have a controlled attack against the enemies of God, it means you're not attacking the enemies of God. And so what did he say in his little 7-minute talk after the consecration? He said that, that we know we should be Catholic. After he said that, about the bishops going to hell and everyone laughing and thinking that was very funny, he told it as a joke. He says, that we know that it's better to be Catholic Because Catholics have a much better chance to go to heaven than non-Catholics. Catholics have a better chance to go to heaven than non-Catholics. We know the teaching of our church and the teaching of our Lord Jesus Christ. Anyone who dies outside of the Holy Roman Catholic Church, and everyone who dies outside of the Holy Roman Catholic Church, without any exception, is eternally and perpetually damned. We read it in the Office of Prime on Sunday in the Old Breviary. In the Office of Prime we read, "This is absolutely certain, that unless a man accepts the Catholic faith whole and entire, he cannot be saved." He cannot be saved. So says our Athanasian Creed in the very beginning. We know that only those in the church can be saved. What does he say? If you're a Catholic, you've got a better chance of being saved. And then later on in his little speech, talking about what we must do, there must not be publicity. It is not for us to be public. Because there's no point in us teaching. He says that dog won't hunt. The dog of teaching others, the dog of going out to give the others the faith, that dog won't hunt. He says that dog won't hunt. No other dogs won't, many dogs won't hunt anymore. Because the people don't understand. They don't understand. They don't get it. So there's no point in explaining to the people who don't get it. So how are the people going to learn the truth? How are the people going to find the truth? God will give a special grace to those people that want the truth to find us. So we don't need to go looking for the lost sheep. We don't need to go out and preaching the gospel. And you just consecrated a bishop an hour before. Why consecrate a fourth bishop who's not going to go out after the lost sheep? Why consecrate a fourth bishop who's not going to explain to souls the errors of modernism and the errors of communism? Here it says in the gospel today, the three positive commands are found in the Gospel of St. Matthew. When our Lord Jesus Christ gave his last instruction to the disciples, to the apostles, as he went up into heaven on Ascension Thursday, he said, "Going therefore, teach ye all nations, baptizing them, and all things whatsoever I have taught you, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost." And then St. Mark, chapter 15, says essentially the same thing, except that he says, preach the gospel to every creature. So St. Mark, preach the gospel to every individual creature. Every individual man, every individual animal, all of the beings, every creature, living and non-living, preach the gospel. And then St. Matthew, going therefore. Going therefore means apostolic. You must go out. You must go out and preach the faith. You must go out and bring the gospel to every end of the earth. And he said that with only a few apostles. And the world was under the grip of Satan. And these souls under the grip of Satan were not interested in hearing the Catholic truth. They were not interested in following the gospel. But what did he say? You go out. You go out and you teach the gospel. You go out and you give the gospel to souls. That's what he told them to do. But they weren't interested. The people aren't interested. And what did Bishop Williamson say? Instruction for the new bishops and the new priests. Do not be loud. Be quiet. Don't be public. Be private. And he said, there has been left to us in these times, said Bishop Williamson in his little talk, there's been left to us in these times three means. Three means left. First of all, example. Secondly, charity. And thirdly, first example, second charity, and then thirdly, the, prayer. Example, charity, and prayer. And so these are the three things left to us. Example, charity, and prayer. What does it say in the gospel? Going therefore, teach ye all nations. First, teach. Even a doctor. The first duty of a doctor is to teach. He teaches you that you should eat less donuts if you don't want to get fat. He teaches you take the green pill at 3 o'clock at breakfast, take the red pill at lunch, take the purple pill at dinner. He teaches. He says, and if imagine a doctor who did not teach, and he only performed the minimal surgeries and the physical things that a doctor does in his medical practice without teaching, then the people would not be healthy. They would not learn how to become healthy. And even a doctor, he must teach. That's what the word doctor means. Doctor means teacher. And a priest is a doctor of souls. He has to teach. He doesn't mention the teaching. Bishop Williamson doesn't mention it. But what does our Lord say when he goes to heaven? Going therefore, teach ye the gospel to every nation. What are you going to teach? All things whatsoever I have commanded you. Baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. And then what is the Holy Ghost going to do when he comes? The Holy Ghost is coming in his church. When the Holy Ghost comes, he's going to convict the world of sin and of justice and of judgment. He's going to convict the world of sin and of justice and of judgment. And here he says, the Paraclete will come. And when he comes, he will convict the world of sin and of justice and of judgment. Of sin because they believe not in me. What's the cause of sin? Ignorance. Ignorance is the first cause. Of course, if we know the truth, we can still sin. But ignorance is the first cause. That's why we call Satan the father of lies. Satan is called the father of lies because he uses lies, which are almost always, most of the time, lies are venial sins, as we mentioned many times. They're not the greatest of sins. Why do we call the devil the father of lies? Because there are many greater sins. The reason is because the lies are the means by which he creates smoke, confusion, and ignorance amongst the followers of God. And then the ignorance that can then be led to any sin. If you don't know that marriage is for babies, you don't know that marriage is so that children can populate the earth, then how can you be against homosexual marriage? If marriage is this person loves that person, what difference does it make if it's this girl loves that guy or that guy loves the other guy? What difference does it make? Unless we understand the purpose of marriage. Unless we understand that marriage is a union between a man and his wife for the purpose of babies and the continuation and procreation of the human race, then we don't have an answer to the problem of homosexual marriage. There must be an understanding, and there must be a teaching. And the devil is afraid of that teaching. He hates that teaching. But that teaching must be. And so the teaching must be given, must come. And then why is there sin? Because they believe not in me. So the world is sin and judgment. Because of sin, because they believe not in me. And of justice, because I go to the Father. And you shall see me no longer. And of judgment, because the prince of this world is already judged. And so the prince of the world is already judged every time there's a baptism. Every time there is a confession, a valid confession. Every time the sacrament is received, the prince of this world is already judged. Go out and baptize, the third command. Teaching all things whatsoever I have commanded. And so that we must go and teach, and this is our duty and our obligation. And yet now we find within Catholic tradition, within the church, that the errors of communism have spread inside of the very core of the Catholic tradition. And we have to combat these errors of communism. And we have to pray that soon the Blessed Virgin Mary gives her victory. And in the meantime, we must do what our fathers and ancestors have done. Remember, the Blessed Virgin Mary showed little children the fires of hell. The Blessed Virgin Mary showed little children how the communism would spread its errors throughout the world, and Russia would destroy the world. And therefore we must know about the errors of Russia. We must know about the dangers of hell. We must know about the attacks of the enemy. And we must make sure that the church knows, and the Pope knows, obey heaven. When you consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, it means recognizing Jesus Christ as the King of Russia. And He's the King of all countries. And He is not only a spiritual king. When we consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, we know that real decisions made by countries, made by men in the outside world, affect souls throughout the whole world. And it's a renewal of the whole faith. So we have to renew our faith. Follow the example of our Lord and our Lady in this great battle of Fatima. 100 years now. And Pope Francis comes to Fatima a couple of days ago. And, again, another mockery of heaven, not obeying her request. And then the Bishop Flay and the society is calling this a Fatima year, which is the importance of prayer, the importance of sacrifice, the importance of love, and not rising above our station, and not worrying about the big questions of Rome, and the great hope that the union with Rome is supposed to happen a couple of days ago in June, by May the 13th. Announcement number, whatever it is, 650 or whatever it is, that we're going to have the union with Rome. And if I was an advisor of the Pope in Rome, I would tell him, keep waiting, and keep waiting, and keep waiting, and keep waiting until they all die. I hope they get it over with, and just make the union to be finished. But so long as the union is not sealed on paper, those souls inside the society can still cover their conscience, even though they're not following the truth, and they're not following the gospel, and not going the way of God. Even though they're not doing that, they can cover their conscience. They can cover their conscience. And so we don't need our conscience to be, I hope it gets over with. They finish the personal prelature this year, as Bishop Flay wishes. But it doesn't matter, because they've given up the faith, and they're not fighting for the truth, and they're turning away more and more. Just a few days ago, 7 priests, 7 deans, 7 superior priests in France, they wrote a letter, which was not even a good one, It was a conservative letter. They said that we accept that priests can come and do marriages in our church, but we don't like it. But if it's a good conservative priest, we'll let him come in. But we want to assure all the faithful that our marriages are valid, and they've always been valid, and they remain valid. And we don't want them, and we will do the marriages, and we are not going to necessarily, we don't need the permission of the local bishop. If he gives it, fine, and we'll accept it. If a noble priest comes, fine, we accept it, provided it's a conservative priest. That's what they said. Not a very good letter. But it was still something. What happened? All 7 of them. A public announcement made by Menzingen yesterday. The 7 priests have been punished and fired. All 7 of them. They've been replaced. One of them was in Paris, the superior of the largest church of the society of St. Nicholas de Chardonnay. He was replaced by the superior Father Vassal. He was replaced by the superior Post Falls, took his place this Sunday as the new superior of that priory of St. Nicholas de Chardonnay. All 7 priests smashed. So look at Rome. These priests stand up and say, we don't accept everything Rome says perfectly. We are going to stand by our marriages still being valid, and the 7 priests are smashed immediately. So why should Rome bother? They're already crushing. The SSPX is already crushing its own priests. They expelled priests like myself, smashing priests on the inside. They're doing what little they can to resist the next move, and then thus creating a conservative movement in the society which is not standing for the truth. Just like the conservative movement in the Novus Ordo. Nice priests, not standing for the truth. God, and this is the way of communism, to destroy, divide, rip apart, and conquer. Divide by having conservatives, neoconservatives, extremely conservatives, traditionals, very traditionals, mostly traditionals, extremely traditionals, and everybody fits in a category. And everyone is related to how extreme they are with everyone else. Whereas Bishop Sheen says, don't relate yourself to others. Relate yourself to Christ. Don't relate yourself to what men say. Relate yourself to what the gospel says. Then you will find there's only one way to be. There's only one answer to every question, and all the other answers are lies, and all the other ways are wicked, and there are millions of wicked ways. And tomorrow there'll be 1,000,001, and then there'll be 1,000,002. But there is only one way to Christ, and only one way to the gospel, and that way never changes. The great errors of Russia have been spread throughout the world the last 100 years, and they will continue to be spread until Our Lady has her great victory. But in the meantime, we have to stand for the truth. We have to continue to profess it, and going therefore teach all nations, and convict the world of sin, of justice, and of judgment. And this must be done until the time of the victory of the Blessed Virgin. God bless you all in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.